Welcome back to Blue Jays Focus, everybody. It has been a difficult stretch for this Toronto Blue Jays organization over the past 24 hours. Another loss in the win column, an injury concern surrounding Alejandro Kirk, and the broader reality of a rotation that continues to operate well below full strength. But today, we have some genuinely encouraging news to work with, and in the current environment surrounding this pitching staff, encouraging news is something worth examining closely and carefully. The headline is Trey Yesavage, and the update on his recovery is not just good, it carries significant implications for how the Blue Jays manage their rotation situation over the coming weeks. We are going to break that down in detail. We also have updates on the Patrick Corbin signing and what that move looks like in practice. The starting pitcher for today's game, a notable performance from a prospect down in the minor leagues, and some context around where Vladimir Guerrero Jr. stands offensively through the early portion of the 2026 season. There is a lot to cover, so let us get into it. Trey Yesavage pitched yesterday for the Dunedin Blue Jays in a Florida State League game, and by virtually every meaningful measure, the outing was a positive one. He went 2 2/3 innings, struck out 3 batters, walked 1, and allowed 1 run on an inside-the-park home run. The results themselves are secondary at this stage of his recovery. What matters is that he took the mound in a live game setting, threw 44 pitches, averaged 94.1 miles per hour with his fastball, generated 9 called strikes, and produced 5 swinging strikes. He exited the game healthy and without incident. Here is the critical context that makes this update so meaningful. Yesavage was not originally scheduled to pitch in a game. The plan heading into this week was for him to continue with non-game throwing sessions as part of his structured return. The fact that the Blue Jays felt comfortable enough with his progress to insert him into an actual competitive game, even at the Single-A level, is a significant escalation from where the organization stood just days ago. Manager John Schneider confirmed that Yesavage is feeling well enough for them to go ahead and test him in a game environment and monitor how he responds and recovers. The one detail worth tracking carefully is the spacing between outings. Yesavage is currently operating on an 8 to 9 day schedule between throwing sessions, which is notably longer than a standard starting pitcher's routine. That cadence tells you that the Blue Jays are being deliberate and conservative with his workload, and that he is not yet close to the point where he could slot into a regular 5-day rotation. But the direction of travel is unambiguously positive. He went from non-game throwing sessions to a live Single-A appearance, and he came through it clean. That is progress, and in the context of everything this rotation has been through this season, real progress on Yesavage's return is enormously valuable news. To put his importance in the broader picture, Yesavage, Jose Barrios, Shane Bieber, and others represent the core of what this rotation is supposed to look like at full strength. Right now, the Blue Jays are working without most of that group, and the organizational depth has been tested repeatedly. Yesavage appears to be the furthest along in his recovery among the injured starters, and if he can continue building toward a return over the coming weeks without setback, the rotation picture begins to look considerably more manageable. The Toronto Blue Jays also signed Patrick Corbin earlier this week, and the reaction in some corners of the fan base has been mixed, understandably so, given where Corbin has been in his career over the past few seasons. But it is important to evaluate this move for what it actually is rather than what it might superficially appear to be. This is not a move driven by an expectation that Corbin will anchor the rotation or perform at a high level over a full season. This is a depth acquisition made in direct response to a rotation that has been depleted by injury and has placed an unsustainable burden on a bullpen that is being asked to cover too many innings too early in the year. Keegan Matheson framed it well. Whether Corbin ends up making 2 starts or 5, if he saves this bullpen from being pushed to its absolute limit on even 1 or 2 additional occasions, the move has already justified itself at the cost the Blue Jays are paying. The reports indicate that Corbin is already fully stretched out, meaning he has been building up his pitch count and arm endurance in preparation for game action. The expectation is that he will make a start or two with the Triple-A Buffalo Bisons before being activated at the major league level, which puts his potential debut with the big league club somewhere in the near future, depending on how those tune-up appearances go. The broader concern here is one worth naming plainly. The Blue Jays are in a position where a veteran pitcher coming off multiple difficult seasons is a meaningful addition to their roster picture. That is a reflection of just how serious the injury situation has become. Maximizing a bullpen game after game through the first month of a 162-game season is not sustainable, and the organizational awareness to address that problem proactively, rather than waiting until the relief corps is genuinely burnt out, is at least the right instinct, even if the solution itself is imperfect. As the healthy starters work their way back, Corbin serves as a bridge. He does not need to be dominant. He needs to eat innings and give the bullpen rest. If he can do that competently for a few weeks, the Blue Jays will be in a much better position by the time Yesavage and others are ready to return. The Blue Jays will send Mason Fluharty to the mound today against the Chicago White Sox in what will effectively be a bullpen game. Fluharty gets the ball as the opener, with a collection of relievers expected to follow him through the remainder of the game. The opponent context matters here. The White Sox are not a playoff-caliber team, and this stretch of the schedule was supposed to represent an opportunity for Toronto to build momentum and accumulate wins against softer competition. That has not gone according to plan. The Blue Jays are currently sitting at 4 wins and 3 losses, and another defeat today would bring them to 500, which is not where this organization expected to be through the first week of the season given the schedule they have been facing. What makes today's game particularly notable is the opponent's pitching situation. Grant Taylor, who impressed for Chicago in yesterday's outing, is slated to return to the mound today in what would be back-to-back appearances as an opener. For the Blue Jays offense, which has been searching for consistency through the early portion of the season, solving a pitcher twice in 2 days presents its own unique challenge. Beyond Fluharty, the bullpen arms expected to see action include Tommy Nance, Louis Varland, and Jeff Hoffman, among others. The Blue Jays had a day off recently, which helps with availability, but the volume of arms being asked to contribute on a regular basis right now is a direct consequence of the rotation depth issues that have defined this start to the season. The sooner healthy starters can return and provide consistent length, the more sustainable this bullpen's workload becomes. Addison Barger is expected to be in the lineup today. He had a strong offensive performance yesterday, including a ball that came within inches of leaving the park, and his presence in the lineup is an important factor for an offense that needs reliable run production from multiple spots. And speaking of the lineup, it is worth addressing Dalton Varsho as well. Varsho has been working his way through his own early season rhythm, and getting consistent contributions from him in the outfield, both offensively and defensively, will be an important factor as this team tries to stabilize through a difficult stretch. Down in the minor leagues, Arjun Nimala had a performance worth highlighting. The Blue Jays made a deliberate organizational decision to keep Nimala in High A Vancouver with the Canadians to open the 2026 season, rather than pushing him to a more aggressive assignment. After receiving accelerated promotions earlier in his development, the organization opted to pump the brakes and create an environment where he would need to earn his next step rather than having it handed to him. Yesterday's game was a meaningful early response to that challenge. Nimala hit a home run and produced one of his stronger offensive performances in recent memory. Keegan Matheson noted that there had been genuine internal discussion about the right assignment for Nimala heading into this season, and the consensus landing spot in High A reflected a philosophy of patient development over aggressive advancement. Based on what he showed yesterday, the early returns on that approach are encouraging. Nimala is a name worth keeping on your radar, and not just for his development trajectory. As the trade deadline begins to approach, and yes, it is early, but roster evaluations happen year-round, prospects like Nimala become currency. With the Blue Jays continuing to assess what their competitive window looks like, the names in the pipeline will inevitably generate trade interest. Nimala's ability to perform at his current level and demonstrate that the early struggles were a developmental phase rather than a ceiling will be a significant factor in how the organization views his value, both internally and as a potential asset. There is one more item worth addressing before we wrap up today's coverage, and it relates to the broader offensive performance of this Blue Jays team through the first 7 games of the season. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is currently posting an OPS of 744 through the early portion of 2026. That number is below what this organization needs from its cornerstone offensive player, and Guerrero himself appears to be acutely aware of it. Reports surfaced after yesterday's game indicating that Guerrero went directly to the batting cage following the final out to work on his swing. He does this periodically throughout the season, but the timing here, through 7 games, with the offense struggling to generate consistent production, is telling. It reflects the competitive standard Guerrero holds himself to, and the fact that he is already putting in extra work this early in the season suggests he recognizes that his game is not yet where he wants it. The appropriate response to a 744 OPS through 7 games is not panic. Baseball has a long history of elite hitters getting off to slow starts in April and posting dominant full-season numbers regardless. The sample size is genuinely too small to draw meaningful conclusions. What is worth acknowledging is that the Blue Jays as a team have shown offensive inconsistency through this early stretch, and when their best hitter is operating below his standard, the ripple effect on the lineup is real. Some additional context is useful here. There is a narrative circulating that references Toronto's 2025 struggles against non-playoff teams as a comparison point for the current performance. The intent behind that framing seems to be reassurance, essentially suggesting that slow starts against lesser competition are not unprecedented for this organization. While that is technically accurate, it is not a particularly useful baseline to lean on. Struggling against non-playoff teams should be an area of correction and improvement, not a recurring organizational pattern that gets normalized by historical precedent. The Blue Jays are capable of better, and the work Guerrero is putting in behind the scenes reflects that standard. Finally, a brief but important note on Alejandro Kirk. The catcher is currently awaiting MRI results following the injury concern that emerged after yesterday's game. The organization is hopeful that the imaging will not reveal anything significant, though there is understandable anxiety around the possibility of a serious injury given the circumstances. If Kirk is unable to continue, the expectation is that the next man up behind the plate would be Brandon Beltre. We should have more clarity on Kirk's status either before or shortly after today's game, and Blue Jays Focus will have full coverage of that update as soon as the information becomes available. To summarize where things stand, Trey Yesavage is making real progress, and his return to game action in Dunedin is the most encouraging development this rotation has seen in weeks. Patrick Corbin is being prepared for major league action and provides at least a temporary bridge for a bullpen that needs relief from the current workload. Mason Fluharty draws the start today in a critical game against the White Sox that the Blue Jays simply cannot afford to drop. Arjun Nimala is making early statements in High A. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is doing the work to get right, and the entire organization is holding its breath on Alejandro Kirk. This is a team navigating a difficult stretch with significant personnel challenges. The foundation is still intact, the pieces are working their way back, and the organizational response, signing Corbin, managing Yesavage carefully, keeping Nimala in an appropriate assignment, reflects a front office that is actively managing the situation rather than waiting for it to resolve itself. Let us know in the comments below what your thoughts are on today's updates. Are you encouraged by the Yesavage news? How do you feel about the Corbin signing? Drop your take below. If you are not already subscribed to Blue Jays Focus, this is where you will find daily coverage of this team throughout the 2026 season. Hit the like button if you found today's breakdown valuable, and we will see you in the next one.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.